Hey everyone, and welcome to the 60th episode of We're All in the Same Boat. I'm your host, Luke Roxwold, and today I am here with Nick.
What up?
And Michael.
Aloha.
And as always, you can check us out on SoundCloud and iTunes and Google Play. Leave us a review and tweet us at WAITSB Podcast. Nick and Michael, welcome to the... Oh, I said podcast. I don't want to say podcast again. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
It's not really a show. There's not really a show going on.
Welcome to the technology
To
radio.
the main event.
Technology radio. That's fun, 'cause, like,
radio.
I mean, technically it's a
Welcome
show,
to the
but show's,
future radio. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing well, man. Happy to
You
be
guys-
here on the show.
The future radio. So I'm like trying to decide if I just want to jump into our main topic today. Oh, I lost my notes. Oh boy. Oh no.
Let's do some small talk while Luke's finding his notes.
Well,
Nick,
today
how are
we'll
you?
be talking about how to properly baste a turkey. That's going to be the subject of today.
Actually,
So,
do you guys know what How To Basic is?
Yeah, like the website?
how to basic? Yeah.
It's the like those YouTube videos where they're supposed to be serious at first, but then they freak out and they go nuts. And it's like this random guy who does a lot of things with eggs.
Oh, yeah, it's like how to, like, fix your Xbox. And he's just, like,
How
kicking
to
it.
fix a leaking toilet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. That's what we'll talk about. Be like how to cook a turkey,
How to cook a turkey.
and then we'll just play that video. So
Do you have your notes, Luke? Can we go now?
it's like I'm stalling. It's like, so
Anyway.
how's
Do you know what we're talking
everybody
about today?
doing?
Good?
I'm actually pretty prepared. We're talking about something a little bit controversial, and we're gonna kind of,
Pretty recent, too.
yeah. Some of this podcast, just as a foreshadowing, is going to be kind of a thought experiment where we're going to be challenging each other. We're going to be playing devil's advocate a lot. I want this is a good example of when something happens, people should be challenging each other, not shouting each other down, because this is not necessarily a simple issue.
All
I
right,
don't
shut
think
up, Luke. Let's get into it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. People should not shout each other. Will you shut up, Luke? So what happened was Michael and I both have a mutual friend. His name is Sean. Shout out to him. Who
Hey.
posted a video.
He's been on the podcast before, too.
Yeah, he has. He's been on, and not for a while, but he was on one before. He posted a video on Facebook talking about his opinion on the James Gunn situation that just recently happened, and said, hey, I want people to talk about this. So then both Michael and I kind of chimed in, and then Sean was like, yo, why don't you put this on the podcast? And I was like, you know what? Hey, why don't I put this on the podcast? So I asked Nick and Michael, and so we're going to talk about this. I've seen a lot of controversial opinions on it, and a lot of people are very aggressive about it, unexpectedly. I didn't know James Gunn was like that popular, other than Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know why people want him so bad.
I feel like he's
Right.
on the internet to just go hard no matter what. They're like, oh, wait. Are there two sides of this? Okay, cool. Well, your side is stupid.
Yeah, pretty
Exactly
much.
what I was saying. Shout
Shout out
everybody
to
down.
someone else.
Yeah, so I didn't even know who he was until everyone started being like, oh, it's just memes. I feel like half my news is just me getting annoyed at people memeing things. But they're like bad memes. Like, people do this when this happens, but then when this happens, and then they'll just make, fun of the other side and say how stupid they are. So can we hear some opinions? Or actually, I don't want to give the backstory because I'm embarrassed to read the tweets. Nick, why don't you tell us the backstory?
I'll tell you the backstory, I guess.
Good.
Sheesh. I gotta get through this. All right. Well, okay. Basically, James Gunn. Okay. Where do I start? Jeez.
So who is he? What did he do?
James
Like-
Gunn is the director for Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2. He's also had some other work that's more questionable, I guess, more kind of related to the topic at hand with what he said on his Twitter account. But before we get to his Twitter account, He did he didn't really do a lot, I would say, as far as directing goes. He did more writing, but he directed Super. He directed what was it, Slither, and then he directed some other stuff like PG. It's called PG Porn, is like the TV series, but it's definitely not. I guess it was supposed to be funny. He just had kind of like a dark humor in general, but he's been making crazy jokes like this for a while, which is like the subject here. Is his tweets were kind of crazy, and I guess let's jump now from what he's done into the actual situation. So the actual situation involved two individuals at first. Mark Duplass, who is actor in a few other movies. Creep is one of his most recent movies. He's a great actor. And he knew a political commentator called Ben Shapiro. He knew him personally. And so I guess there was some kind of event that happened, and Mark Duplass, he was in, what else was he? He was in The Lazarus Effect, Safety Not Guaranteed.
Isn't Mark Duplass the guy from the internet that talks about video games? Markiplier?
Oh, Markiplier?
Just kidding.
No, that's not the same guy.
That sounds like a French name. Like, Mark Duplass,
Well-
but in English.
Well, well, basically, Mark Duplass, he was, he wanted to, I guess, reach across the aisle politically, and I think that was like kind of like the goal of his tweet towards Ben Shapiro, and I guess in my personal opinion, there's not really anything wrong with that. So I just kind of, when I saw that, I kind of just brushed it off. But then it ended up being a pretty controversial thing for him to even suggest that. So
what was his tweet?
I can read it. So it was basically,
and this is Mark Duplass. This is not James.
This is not
Gunn.
James Gunn. Yeah.
This is something leading up to
telling-
that kind of that
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you know what? I had it pulled up. Give me 1 sec. We can cut this.
Yeah, no.
Fellow liberals.
Fellow liberals.
He sent this on July 18th, 4:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fellow liberals, if you are interested at all in crossing the aisle, quote unquote, you should consider following Ben Shapiro. I don't agree with him on much, but he's a genuine person who once helped me for no other reason than to be nice. He doesn't bend the truth. His intentions are good. And literally the first reply to that is, Mark, no. And he kind of got attacked online by a lot of people for that tweet. And one of the main attackers was James Gunn. So in response to that, we'll get to Mark Duplass's response after like 24 hours. But basically, he responded to that tweet that Mark Duplass did. And he said, maybe you disagree with Mark Duplass, which is completely fair. This is James Gunn. Personally, I think even Ben Shapiro's mother should unfollow him. But that doesn't make Duplass a point of evil. There are a lot of traitors and racists in the country today. Perhaps save the outrage for them. Not everyone can be right all the time about everything. And if you think that's possible, then eventually you're going to be standing by yourself, quote unquote, right, but alone. And then,
and that was James Gunn's response to that tweet.
And then Ben Shapiro responded, I appreciate the sentiment, James Gunn, even if you're as wrong about following me as you were in your directorial decisions in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Shots fired, dang.
And so in response to that, Mark Duplass basically responded with a formal apology in the form of like a Word document, or he screenshotted a Word document, I guess, because he had a lot to say. Mm-hmm. And in what he said in this tweet, so that tweet was a disaster on many levels. I want to be clear that I in no way endorse hatred, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, or any such form of intolerance. My goal has always been to spread unity, understanding, and kindness. But I'm going to make mistakes along the way. Sometimes I move too quickly when I get excited, or fail to do enough research, or I don't communicate myself clearly. I'm really sorry. I now understand that I need to be more diligent and careful. I'm working on that. but I do believe deeply in bipartisan understanding, and I will continue to do my best to promote peace and decency in this world right now. That said, I hear you, and I want to say thank you to those who reached out with constructive criticism. I have genuinely learned so much and wish everyone all the best. So, anyway.
I can't believe like that'll happen. But he's like, maybe you should check this guy out. And it's like, I'm so sorry for my hatred. You're like, what happened now?
I feel like I missed something.
Yeah.
And then
we should listen to this guy too. He's a nice guy. He's just trying to believe things. No! How dare you?
And so Ben responded to that tweet, retweeted and said, so in 24 hours, I apparently went from being a person with good intentions to a racist, sexist bigot. Twitter toxifies any attempt to cross the aisle. There's no conservative Mark could have recommended who wouldn't receive the same blowback. Today's leftist lesson on Twitter. Write a nice tweet about someone with whom you disagree with politically. Get labeled a racist, a sexist, a homophobe. Good stuff, guys. Really showing that tolerant streak.
That's insane.
And I, if you want to talk about like likes, dislikes, or whatever, Ben definitely has a lot of people on his side, so it's interesting. Very popular political commentator. Do you guys want to know what people were complaining about with Ben? Are you interested in that at all?
Is it related to
relevant?
James Gunn? That much?
Not really. No, not really at all.
Okay, then we'll just skip it for there. Because I think the most important part of what you were talking about was his reaction.
So basically,
James Gunn's reaction.
James Gunn's reaction. I guess after Ben tweeted, people after he retweeted James Gunn's tweet, I guess people were like, "Huh, I wonder what happens if I," because people were basically digging into Ben's tweets. That's what happened. People showed old tweets from Ben, and so they did the same thing to James Gunn. And so basically, that's when they found this bundle of tweets that James Gunn never deleted. And a lot of them I really can't read. They're pretty freaking horrible.
I'm trying to read one right now that I can like say.
I feel like I have to read them like I'm reading so that someone couldn't take it out of context.
So every like other word be like out. Quote.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the content, there was a lot of stuff with like pedophilia, a lot of jokes about pedophilia, some NAMBLA jokes, stuff about monkeys and bestiality, very dark stuff.
He uses the word little boys and kids and a lot of stuff with
trainerific.
Blowjobs, masturbation, and it's like just a lot of combinations of those few things. You can look up these tweets. I just don't want to read them just because.
Yeah, I don't want to read the whole.
It's like the whole child pornography fear, where it's like, okay, I don't know, I don't even want to go near anything even remotely close to anything like that because. One, it's terrible, and two, it's just you can get in so much trouble. So I don't even like reading them.
Yeah, there's one you can read. Do you want me to read one?
Sure.
I remember my first NAMBLA meeting. It was the first time I felt okay being who I am. Some of those guys are still my BFFs. Kind of like it was almost like what South Park had did with their episode on NAMBLA. So
I don't actually know what that is. I don't know if that's a dumb question.
So they.
They
believe that pedophilia is a natural thing, and so they believe they have rights and they want consent age laws to be changed.
So basically, to get an idea of what James Gunn's tweets have been like, listeners out there, imagine like the grossest like kid you knew in middle school and high school who watched South Park all the time and who would just say like random stuff and they were just really weird. That's basically what all these tweets are like.
It's the pedophile stuff that I think is the hardest to get past. Like another one that he said is, quote, "I like it." This is a quote. He says, "I like it when little boys touch me in my silly place." Shh.
Right.
And it's like, is that well, I won't get into my opinions yet. But that's one of the tweets. There's probably about, I don't know, 16 of the ones that have been kind of pulled up and highlighted online. Just Google James Gunn offensive tweets and you will find them.
Yeah, you can find them.
So
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that there is two sides to this. One side is like, all right, he should be fired, which he was fired from directing the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I believe one of the other new Marvel movies as well. So he basically lost his contract with Disney. And then there's another side that's saying freedom of speech, he should be allowed to say what he wants to say. They're just jokes. He shouldn't have lost his job over Disney over tweets he made 10 years ago. This is not fair, or it's hypocritical. Am I representing the sides correctly, do you guys think?
I think so. There's a few things just to remember about the whole ordeal. He did respond on Twitter and apologize. And so...
Now, was this before or after he got caught? Because someone was saying it was before.
Before? No.
This was after? I was trying to find that, but I didn't find it.
I can check. Just give me one sec.
Michael, why don't you... Is there anything else you'd like to add while he's doing this? Because I talked a little bit, so I'd like to hear anything you'd like to add to this.
Yeah, so basically, people were like... half people were like, yeah, you should totally just be fired. Like, there's no way you should talk this way, because everyone on the internet's like always, I don't know, crazy. Which they're not wrong in this case, but also other people are saying like you can do whatever you want. Also, this was like, it was like I think the last tweet that I saw on like this list was like in 2012, maybe 2014 at the latest.
Yeah, something like
that.
So
they're pretty old. Like, I know them like in 2012 I was 19. Which I know he's probably a lot older than me, so it's not the same, but a lot can change. Like what I said in 2012 and what I say now is like totally different. So I can see how. I think he even mentioned in his tweet that he's like changed as a person since then, and he would never say those things now, or he's maturing now.
Mm-hmm. And that's his. He made like a very long tweet about like after he got in trouble, talking about that stuff. What I'm curious about is if there was a tweet that he made beforehand. Someone was saying there was. I don't know if there. Like I think might have been two. Like there's the one he made recently. But I heard that there might have been another one he made previously. But I actually don't know if I believe that.
I have no idea. I don't really follow it.
Nick, do you have any info? If not, then let's just move on.
Well, so the sequence of events went... the exchange happened. Ben Shapiro has a retweet. People dig up the tweets. Mainly the Daily Caller are the ones that published the big hit piece on it. Hit piece on James with the old tweets. Mm-hmm. And then Marvel fired him almost immediately, and then he issued an apology. So on Twitter,
okay.
And he was basically like, my words of nearly a decade ago were at the time totally failed in unfortunate efforts to be provocative. You know, a general, I would say, apology. Probably actually meant it. Maybe. I'm sure he's sorry because, like you said, he apologized before. So,
well, I don't know that he did.
He apologized in 2012.
That's what I couldn't find.
Yeah, he apologized.
Do we have that tweet?
Let me find it.
Actually, I'm looking at the tweets right now of him apologizing.
Well, so here's what's going on. There's like 5 tweets he just made apologizing. Yeah. But someone was telling me that there was another tweet that he made in 2012 where he apologized then as well. Kind of odd that he didn't delete the tweets though.
Yeah, well, we probably didn't think about it by the time he.
I'm sorry, and I'm like making them all. All right, I'm reading through.
Which tweets are you looking at? The new ones?
Yeah, I'm looking at the new ones. I think Nick's looking at the old ones.
I'm looking at the old ones.
Can you read the new ones, Michael, while he's looking at the old ones?
Yeah, I got
this is from. Oh, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Do the new one, and then do the old one.
So this is from July 19th. So like as of now, like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It says, many people who have followed my career know when I started, I viewed myself as a provocateur, making movies and telling jokes that were outrageous and taboo. As I have discussed publicly many times, as I have developed as a person, so has my work in humor. It's not to say I'm better, but I am very, very different than I was a few years ago. Today, I try to root my work in love and connection and less in anger. My days saying something just because it's shocking and trying to get a reaction are over. In the past, I have apologized for humor of mine that hurt people. I truly felt sorry. I meant every word of my apologies. For the record, when I made these shocking jokes, I wasn't living them out. I know this is a weird statement to make and seems obvious, but still, here I am. Anyway, that's the complete honest truth. I used to make a lot of offensive jokes. I don't anymore. I don't blame my past self for this. but I like myself more and feel like a more full human being and creator today. Love you to you all.
Okay, so that's the tweet he just recently made after the piece came out about him. And Nick, do you have the old tweet? The one from 2012?
I don't know if it's a set of tweets, but he wrote this on his blog.
Right, I was going to say, if it's 2012, it might not even be a tweet.
Yeah, and so basically he had several blog posts that he apologized for in 2011. So they weren't about the pedophile tweets or the jokes he made, but it was kind of like a general statement, like, I have shitty humor that I need to apologize for. And so he said a couple of years ago, it was about...
Is it in reference to some... It's got to be in reference to something that happened, I'm sure. People usually don't just apologize for no reason.
Yeah, he wrote a blog post about women, gays, and lesbians with pretty explicit language.
Oh, yeah, that was the Marvel one, I thought. Well, there was something. I saw something about that in an article.
Yeah, it's like anti-gay and sexist comments about characters on a list called the 50 quote-unquote superheroes you would most want to have sex with.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
And so he basically said, a couple of years ago, I wrote a blog post that was meant to be satirical and funny. In rereading it over the past day, I don't think it's funny. The attempted humor in the blog does not represent my actual feelings. However, I can see where statements were poorly worded and offensive to many. I'm sorry I regret making them at all. People who are familiar with me, as evidenced by my Facebook page and other mediums, know that I'm an outspoken proponent for the rights of the gay and lesbian community, women, and anyone who feels disenfranchised. And it kills me that some other outsider like myself, despite his or her gender or sexuality, might feel hurt or attacked by something I said. We're all in the same camp, and I want to do my best to make this world a better place for all of us. I'm learning all the time. I promise to be more careful with my words in the future, and I'll do my best to be funnier as well. Much love to all. So that was back in 2012.
Okay, so the one point I do want to make on that one is it wasn't like he was apologizing for old tweets before. That was somebody was saying. And it was a prompted apology. Now, I don't think anyone ever apologizes without getting in trouble first. But the angle of like, well, he was just a good character and he realized he made his mistakes and he apologized. And now they're bringing him up again. It's like, well, he never apologized for the ones that people are bringing up now.
True.
And apologies to me don't mean a whole lot. They can kind of mean, but they're also usually PR, like they're a PR move a lot of times. So
yeah,
in terms of judging character, it's a little difficult to do that because it's like, well, everyone apologizes when they get in trouble and lose money because they want to get in trouble and they want to make more money later, or they're genuine, but you never know.
Right. Well, let's get into it, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Luke, why do you think it's okay? I'm just kidding.
Well, I think, well, Luke, you can kind of continue that thought. Does that kind of go into why you think he should have been fired?
So,
because he didn't technically apologize for these tweets, right? So,
well, my thoughts are more reactions to why people think he shouldn't get fired. So, if it's okay with you guys, I'd rather start with why he shouldn't get fired.
Sure.
Because there are reactions to that and there are reasons why those aren't correct. So,
right, well, let me start.
Forfeit.
Go for it.
Okay, so basically, I heard about this. I don't care too much about this particular guy. Like, I don't really... He said some pretty weird things. If he gets fired, like, I can see why people are upset about it. At the same time, I feel like every time I turn around, someone's getting in trouble for some weird racist, like, vaguely racist thing they said, or some kind of inappropriate thing that they said, or like doing something that's like some weird, like, oh, like they like cheated on their wife, or like had some kind of weird sexual gray area immorality or something like that. I feel like the same people who like accuse these people of stuff and are like they need to lose their jobs also do the same thing. Like I've heard people make way worse jokes and do the same like weird sexual misconduct things as these guys, and that no one's like if someone asks them to lose their job, like you need to quit your job because you are racist for saying this kind of racist thing, that would be ridiculous. It doesn't really make any sense.
So
it makes sense, but it's like if it wasn't all the time about everything, I would care. But now I just like, really, guys, like again, you're just gonna call out this random dude.
So you think that the tweets are just kind of irrelevant because they're old, and we should just stop making everything such a big deal all the time, type thing?
Mainly the second half. I guess the tweets probably in this case it could affect some things. I'm not saying that like since they're so old, like he shouldn't be held accountable to it. But I'm saying like the reaction to everything these days is like, oh, they need to be fired. Like, there's like literally no in between. And I think that's ridiculous.
Nick, what do you think?
I guess there is a lot that I agree with what Mike said. I'm fine with the outrage towards the tweets. I'm fine with him. He needs to apologize. He did. I wish he wasn't fired before he apologized. I wish that he didn't get fired and then apologize. I wish that he actually apologized before he got fired.
You don't want it to be like, oh, I got fired and I'm losing all this money. Let me apologize and see if I can fix it.
Yeah,
thing.
That makes it feel more like a PR stunt.
Yeah,
but I do assume that he is regretting those tweets, and I'm sure he's like, I would never do that now, especially now that I'm more of an icon.
The question is he regretting those tweets because he got in trouble for them, or is he regretting those tweets because they were inappropriate tweets to make?
Probably both, but I think it's more so. Yeah, but I think it's more so.
I don't think we can know. That's
probably
the point I want to make.
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
do you guys think that Disney? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say at the end of the day, it's crappy, and like I would never condone him doing that now, especially as the director and people look to him, like I said, as a film icon in some way, and it's like, come on, dude. Like, people are actually following you now, and people listen to what you say, and you seem to preach tolerance. So, but he did that in 2009, and I know Disney probably knew about it already, but I think that they just fired him because there was a mob of people demanding it. So I think that's actually what happened. And that's why I'm like, I don't think they should have apologized to them. I don't like it when just a mob of people on Twitter have that much control.
Yeah.
And I think we need to eventually set a precedent where it's like, okay, like, it's crappy, but he did it back then and he apologized, so he's not going to do it. But
right.
he's still our director.
Like, I do agree that having mobs decide who loses their job, especially with no context. I stand against this stuff about, I don't know, probably 98% of the time. And this is the one time where I'm not sure. It is challenging me on some of my views of free speech, because I tend to be pretty much a free speech absolutist, which in some ways, actually, I think I still am with this. I think he should be allowed to say what he said, but I do think you have to suffer consequences sometimes.
Totally.
So, I don't think what he said should be illegal, but I want to know, how do you guys feel about both Papa John and Roseanne?
Oh, man.
Based on the stuff we just talked about.
So, from what I understand, Roseanne, like, I'm just trying to get context. So, Roseanne was arguing with somebody on Twitter, I think, and basically said a racist joke. It was like, you look like a mix of Al-Qaeda and, like, a monkey had a baby or something like that.
It was a Planet of the Apes character.
Okay. So, she like made a pretty racist joke to somebody on the internet. It's pretty much a dick move, but also, like, I don't know. Here's what okay, so yeah, that happened, and then Papa John is who's in charge of Papa John's? I want to call him Papa John. I don't know. He was on a phone call.
Papa John.
And I believe, from what I've heard, I might be wrong. He quoted somebody saying the N-word, but someone said something serious, like it wasn't a joke. He was just quoting someone saying the N-word, but he said the N-word, and like on a phone call, and people got mad at him, and I think he stepped down.
Right.
And
are these things different? But for both of you, are these things different from what happened with James Gunn?
Oh,
and if
yes.
so, why?
I think all three of them are different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're all handled all the same. They all got fired. But I think, like, with Roseanne, her intent was to hurt somebody, which, for one thing, hurting someone's feelings is not a good reason to get fired. But I understand, like, if you don't want someone who does that, is representing your brand, you fire them. With Papa John, like, as far as I know, he was just quoting somebody. He wasn't, like, trying to demean anybody or be insensitive. He was literally, like, just saying the word, which is a weird gray area, but I don't think that's worth getting fired over. But with James Gunn, in the past, he said really weird, like, really inappropriate stuff, And I understand it's like a company that makes movies for kids. You don't want to be connected to somebody like that. So they're all a little bit different. They all have some nuance, but I feel like in general, like all three of them, even though they're different and are very like varied in their severity, two big words. I think that I don't know. They're all treated the same. It's kind of like if you work somewhere and like if you make any mistake, you're fired. It's kind of like that doesn't make any sense. That's not really how business should work. Like,
well,
Luke,
I do know.
If you're really bad at like, I don't know, like making change when you go, I don't know. Say when you go to the subway to get to work, you like get upset and like cuss at somebody, and then you get to work like, oh man, like I heard you cussing at that guy on the subway, like you're fired. I don't care how good you program, like you're fired. It's right. Dumb.
You're saying that it's the same punishment no matter the severity of the crime. In a way, even though they're not really crimes.
It's also like these people aren't like their job isn't to be a moral standard. Their job is just
like
to do
this guy lost $1,000 at his job, he's fired. This guy lost $1 at his job, he's fired. And you're like, well, so is every tiny little mistake mean you should lose your whole career?
It's also now, it's like you failed at something else, so you get fired from your job. That has nothing to do with it.
I want to pinpoint something this is one of the differences that I do know. Is the time. So Roseanne and Papa John, just keep calling him Papa John.
Do you want to know his name?
That's what we call him.
Isn't it Shatner or something?
Schnatter, John Schnatter.
Schnatter.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, his name is John.
John Shatner.
We call my grandpa Papa John.
So, okay, so Roseanne and Papa John, they both said these things recently. Like they just said them. Within months, right? Like months ago.
Right.
These are tweets from 10 years ago. So yeah, times change. Just like when people talk about history and go, well, they did this thing back then. And it's like, life was so different back then. Yeah. There's no way they would be prepared for it. You know?
Yeah, like, a lot was different with these people back then too.
If someone like if we went into the future 100 years and then someone was like, we're going to throw you in jail because you drove a car to work and that's not allowed anymore. It's like, well, at the time that I was alive, it was fine. And I didn't know it was bad, but now that we're in the future, we know it's bad. So it's like, how can you hold people accountable? So I'll give that.
That is a big difference.
As a part of it. But one thing that I am seeing with this, and this is part of the reason I have my stance on it, is like with the Roseanne thing, I am kind of have mixed opinions on it. Because I actually don't think she meant it to be racist. I really don't.
I think she's mostly mean.
Well, because the person she made fun of literally has the same haircut as the character in that movie, and it doesn't really make sense. Like, why would she purposefully be racist publicly?
Well, did you see her?
Everyone on Earth knows that's political suicide. Why would you do that? Just doesn't make sense to me.
Did you see her random apology video? Kind of apology
No.
video.
Actually,
she basically just explained it, and she just said, "I thought she was white." She said it in a much different tone. She just basically said, "I thought, quote unquote, the bitch was white." And she yells that into the camera, and that's the whole video. And
like a really wonderful woman.
And she just says that, and basically, that's it. She wasn't trying to be racist.
Right. So I don't know anything about her. I don't know anything about Roseanne at all. I literally know nothing about her. All I know is I don't think she was being racist. I don't think she was trying to be. So whatever that's worth. Papa John, from what I understand, he, like you said, I think he was literally saying racism is bad. And he said, he was quoting, he's like, Colonel Sanders used to say something about the N-word, right? Like he was quoting Colonel Sanders and saying this is why racism is bad.
Right.
But he didn't say N-word, and so everyone's upset that he didn't censor himself.
Right.
So it's I'm like, I don't know. So that's their two situations. So I'm not sure that either one of them should have been fired. I don't really know. But do we agree on that, or do we have different thing?
I agree,
because I barely even have an opinion on it. I'm just saying I don't. From what I know of it, I'm like, wait, why did they get fired? Yeah,
I just looked up an article about the Papa John thing, and you're right. It literally says, he was trying to downplay the significance of his NFL statement. He was asked like how he would distance himself from racist groups, and he said Colonel Sanders called blacks and then N-word, and that's literally it. Like he was saying like it was probably like his next thing was like, oh yeah, like I'm not gonna do that.
What was the context of that? Was he saying? Did he say something before that or something?
I don't have all the context here. So it sounds like it was an interview.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was racist. I don't know. Maybe he said something else, and I just don't know about it. I don't know the whole story. I just am wondering, like, if both of them should or shouldn't have lost their job, how is James Gunn the same or different? So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
I guess, like I said, the Roseanne thing. You have to realize she is also
she's crazy.
Crazy. She was on drugs. She takes Ambien. A little out of her mind. I'm sure, like, if there was a PR person next to her, she wouldn't have done it. But she lost it a little bit, and it's like, okay, I understand. You didn't mean for it to happen. You thought she was white. It's a misunderstanding, but she said it, and the fact that it was even on her mind is bad enough for the mob, I guess. I keep referring to them as the mob.
Yeah, the mob.
I don't even know who they are. I don't know if it's like a Twitter mob. You got millions of people complaining. People are boycotting the show, calling for boycotts. Sometimes a company just doesn't want that hassle, that PR nightmare, I guess, and they'll just cut people. And
right, which is giving power to the mob.
And that's the problem, right? We have to eventually just take a stance. No, I don't think any of these people should be fired, but I think there should be ways to definitely hold them accountable that doesn't involve firing them. Unfortunately, now we just demand that people lose their main sources of income.
So based on what we've brought up in this podcast, here's what I don't want to happen right now. I don't want someone to tweet me or message me or whatever and say, you didn't have all the facts, and therefore you just said a racist should not get fired. Okay, I don't want that to happen because I'm basing everything I'm saying here on the stuff we brought up.
Side note, I just Googled Valerie Jarrett. She totally looks like a white woman, or like an Asian woman.
I know.
She does.
I can see how she would have.
So that's why I just don't know. I'm like, well, okay. So Papa John, Roseanne, as far as I know, I don't think they should have been fired. Now James Gunn,
I'm saying we acknowledge they're not great people. It's not like we're saying yay, we like these people. Like if they are racist or whatever, like we don't even care. We're talking about these specific instances, so I think it's fine.
So let me explain why I think James Gunn is a little different in some ways. So how do I explain this? It's hard to word this stuff. He keeps talking about children, and that is like crossing into what I mentioned earlier, which is like the child pornography stuff. Yeah. Where it's like you can make a movie that's violent, you can make porn, you can do all these things that you want. They can say whatever you want. You can make racist movies if you want. You can do all of these things. But child pornography, we've all agreed, like, no, we can't. This cannot exist. Right. Totally illegal, right? And you get in a ton of trouble if you get caught with it, right? Like you're screwed forever if you can just get caught with it. Like it is, as a society, we have 100% decided this is not going to fly. And I agree with that. I think that that's good. And so crossing into these lines, these jokes, and I use the term lightly, is that it is crossing into that area. Mm-hmm. And I say quote unquote jokes because most of them didn't even really seem like jokes.
They
not really.
Funny.
It's like, what's the punchline? It's just like constantly talking about children and jacking off and like, I don't know. I was just like, what? This is like really creepy and weird. And the reason I'm standing more with Disney on this decision is Disney has this guy doing kids movies.
Right.
So it's like if I was the best example I could think of is imagine if you had a high school teacher, and this is pretty aggressive here, but imagine if you had a high school teacher tweeting out, even if it was like 5-10 years ago, like, wow, I love this movie so much, I think I'm going to go shoot up a school.
Right.
Do you think that teacher should keep their job?
I think it's a very good chance they'd lose it, and it'd probably be the right thing for the school to do.
Oh, but I was joking. But it's like, yeah, well, you can't, like, if you're a teacher, if you're making movies for children, you can't be joking about raping children, you know?
Yeah.
It just seems like it doesn't seem like an unreasonable decision for Disney to go, hey, look, yeah, I know you said these a long time ago, but you cannot be directing children's movies for our company with this sort of statement on record.
So I do have some stuff to say about that. That's not necessarily, I don't know, but I want to ask another question first. Because Sean, when he had posted about James Gunn initially, which was, I think, the first I'd heard of it, he was saying that, like, he made a good point that the context of when he was making these tweets, like, back in, like, the late 2000s, like, most humor was, like, you know, South Park, like, really, like, gross, like, ridiculous humor. Like, people would just say, like, random crap like that. Like I said, think about all your friends in high school who would just say random crap. So at the time, people probably, at least his followers, understood what he was saying when he said these things. Like, they knew he was joking, whether or not they were good jokes. Do you think that should matter now at all?
Before I answer that, I do have a response to it, and like a rebuttal in a way, an answer. But Nick, do you have any thoughts on some of the stuff I just brought up?
Well, I'm trying to remain neutral. So I guess Luke, you made a really good point before, like, Mike kind of does his spiel, I guess. But I would just say, like, I think you make a really good point, like, in the context of that. The problem, I think, is that one, Disney knew. I'm sure if Disney didn't, I'd be very, very shocked. But I'm sure Disney knew about his past before hiring him. And then two, I think you have to realize, like, if the person is teaching high school, and they don't tweet that out, like, already, like, I just, like, in my mind, it's like, if they see those tweets, if they don't hire him before he's teaching high school, like, they hire him after they find out. So in the same situation, they find out James Gunn has those tweets, they hire him anyway. I
have two rebuttals, but sorry, I thought you were finishing up. But
no, I'm just saying, like, in my mind, like, that is the thing that would directly run counter to your scenario in this case.
So if Disney already knew, there's kind of a slight difference between did we know and does everyone else know, and if anything happens, it comes back to us. So as an example, if the teacher made this tweet and nobody knows about the tweet, that is what it is. The school might still hire him because, you know, it's the school. But if everyone in the school knows that this teacher made that tweet, all the parents of all the students know that she or he tweeted this out, and they go to the teachers and say, I'm not comfortable with my children at this school based on what I know that person said. And then on top of that, if this teacher actually did flip out and actually do what they were quote unquote joking about doing, the school is done because everyone knows the school knew, okay? Because it was public. Mm-hmm. So Disney's the same way. So even if Disney knew before, Disney definitely knows now, and everyone else knows now, and everyone knows Disney knows now. So if James Gunn gets caught with child pornography, or he goes after a kid, or whatever he might do, Disney's in huge trouble as a company because they knew about it and they didn't do anything about it. That's the first rebuttal, or the first, like, response I have to that. Mm-hmm. As for Michael, you were talking about like I know Sean brought up like Dane Cook or like Anthony Jeselnik, like these very offensive comedians that part of their routine is just being completely outrageous and offensive, especially back in those days when like Dane Cook and stuff was super popular. Right. So the difference that I have here is that James Gunn is not a comedian. He is not getting fired as a comedian. So he has a separate job. So Dane Cook does an offensive joke and people laugh at it. He's doing his job. So the company is not tied to him the same way that a director is going to be tied to a movie. Does that kind of make sense? Like, a comedian's job is to make jokes and try to make people laugh in some way. But on the side, they do whatever they want. His job is to make movies for children, and on the side, he's talking like a comedian. So he's getting fired because he's a director, but he's saying these offensive things. So that's the way I kind of see it. It's not his job to say the things he's saying.
Right.
Like a comedian's job is.
So, yeah, I agree with that. So I guess I'm wondering, like, also is like, it's not his job to say these things, but also, well, I can't really disagree with you on that.
Yeah. So if I said I'll hire you, I'll pay you money to go try and make jokes and make people laugh, and then you go and do that. You know, I can't be like, well, you shouldn't have done what I'm paying you to do.
Well, he was making adult material.
You can't fire them also for doing their job badly. Like if they're making people laugh or not making people laugh.
No, but I can fire them for doing something that reflects the company badly. Because this isn't related to his job at all.
Right.
No, it's not.
I mean,
I was just saying at the time that he made a lot of these really, really bad jokes. He was like making, you know, really adult material. I guess that's where kind of his mind was.
So he can probably still make adult material if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But the movies he's making now are kids' movies now.
Right. And so I guess, I don't know, like where do we set the line where past secrets are discovered, or like past stuff is discovered, I guess, like social media? Like is then all social media, like, is that just like a place that we're going to go to like blackmail people, or can people change? You know, this was 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess is there a case?
I can say,
is there like a time limit? Like,
so I just put down a note. So like, let's cover this, because this kind of branches out of the topic. I just put down past secrets around forever. You know, we can talk about that. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up that are in my notes is that when Roseanne got fired, he tweeted out, I wish some of these so-called defenders of liberty would start to understand what is freedom of speech and what isn't. Roseanne is allowed to say whatever she wants. It doesn't mean that ABC Network needs to continue to fund her TV show if her words are considered abhorrent.
Totally.
So he literally is nailed himself in his own coffin with that tweet.
Wait, he said that?
Yeah.
James Gunn said that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's dead. He's gone. He's done.
So now I'm not saying that, like, I'm just saying, like, you shouldn't always, like, I don't know, practice what you preach, I guess. Because he is suffering the same consequences that he was saying people needed to uphold. So that's the end of my side of it.
He's also he's not saying that his freedom of speech was hindered, but that is a good point. People keep saying stuff like that, like, oh man, like, we need freedom of speech. It's like, yeah, she can say whatever she wants, but you don't have to pay her to work for your company.
You're part of the brand.
And I'm sure he would agree, like, his firing is justified. Like, I don't think he complained about being fired. I think he was just apologized.
So I think
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, man.
I guess he did dig his own grave, and I hope you know, my hope, I guess, is that he personally is not, like, offended by what Marvel or what Disney did by firing him. He would, like, understand that. You know, if he didn't, then that's a problem. But I guess I don't have that evidence. I don't know.
Right. That does kind of make sense too. Like, if he is okay with it, like, I guess that's the stance. I want people to figure out what, on principle, is what Disney did wrong. Is it outrageous? Whatever. Right. So, and then what should we do after that?
To more accurately, like, state my stance or whatever, like, I don't think Disney was wrong to fire him. Like, whether or not what he said was super bad or whatever, like, anyone can fire anybody. Like, I don't think it matters. Like, if I don't want someone working for my company, it's not discrimination for me to be like, oh, they're not, like, the right fit, or they're not the vibe of, like, that I'm trying to put out, like, to the customers of what my company is like. But at the same time, my point is not necessarily with what Disney did, but how people always react to these things. It's always, like, super hardcore, like, he needs to lose his job. Right. It's not like, oh yeah, like, I can see how Disney thinks that's not a good decision to keep him on, but it's always like, oh man, like, he did this, well, he needs to get fired, blah blah blah. But, like, half the stuff that people do, like, are the same. Like, they're not doing anything that's, like, really that bad. Like,
the
Papa
answer
John
isn't obvious. That's the big thing. It's like people act like it's easy to decide this. We've been talking for an hour about this.
He is saying bad things. I'm not saying what he said wasn't that bad.
Right.
Disclaimer.
No, I'm saying, like, I'm agreeing with you in the sense that
I'm telling the crowd.
no matter what happens, people always act like the solution to this situation is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we've literally spent, like, almost an hour just kind of talking through the whole thing and thinking about it. So the fact that, like, people read a headline and then all of a sudden they're posting memes about, like, how it's outrageous what this side is doing or what the other side is doing. And it's like, how can you, we got to talk through this stuff. It's not, none of this stuff is that simple.
Right.
So you were talking about past secrets being damned by your past secrets forever. That I don't know about, actually.
Well, I guess, first off, let me just resonate with what Mike said. It's like, if Disney wants to fire him, they have the right to decide to do that. Does that mean he should be fired? I would say no. So maybe it's a difference of opinion, or maybe we can try and hammer it out as an objective thing. Like, we can all agree that no, he shouldn't have been fired. But I think that's what you're
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's mainly what you're arguing against, right?
From Disney and Marvel's perspective, I think they should fire him.
They should fire him.
Purely as a business
Well,
move,
because everyone knows about this now, and people are going to be like, I'm not taking my kids to see a movie about a guy who talks like a pedophile.
So
right?
because they'll probably lose money, they should fire him.
Yeah, I mean, they're a business.
From a business standpoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, if I was Disney, what would I do? What would you guys do? Would you keep him on?
I remember joking before, like, I feel like I give people a lot of second chances, like, in life. I always try to, like, see the other side. But if I was a boss, I'd be firing people a lot more than most people are. Like, you've all had jobs growing up where you're working at, like, fast food or, like, at a theme park, whatever. And there's always that, like, people are just, like, sleeping. And they still work there. And you're like, how the heck do you still work here? You're like, you're not even good you don't even do your job. And you kind of suck as a person. Like, it's not like, they're not just kind of bad. So I feel like if I worked for Disney, I would have fired people for much less than what they're doing. Like, than this, you know? This is definitely pretty crazy. But at the same time, the difference is now is, like, that was like I think the newest weird one's probably like 6 years ago. That was a long time. I can understand with Roseanne and Papa John, like, they did things just now, and people right now are freaked out. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it was so long ago. It's not literally not relevant now. Yeah.
Let me retract a little bit. If I was Disney, I'm not sure. I do think that, I don't know. When it's the director. Here's the thing: if it was a grip, you're like, oh, some trash talking guy in a warehouse. Okay, whatever. But it's like, he is the director, so he is the face of the film, and it's always been kind of taught that what you put on the internet stays on the internet. And so, like, that's the whole thing about this podcast. I've said, you can say whatever you want, just know that in 10 years, someone might be pulling this up and getting you fired from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
So that's why it's like, when you put things in ink, you got to be careful about it. And I don't know. It is a weird line. Like, this is not an easy answer for me to give. I just think, like, from the business perspective, you don't want the director of your children's movies to be talking about like pedophile stuff. It's not really a good look, and I know a lot of people would boycott the movies because of it. And I don't think that they really are unreasonable for doing so in a lot of ways, especially like parents. Like, I'm not going to take my kids to see that movie.
So outside of James Gunn in particular getting fired, what do you think though about, like, just like the character? No, it's not character assassination, but just like, it's always like that. And I feel like it's really hypocritical of most people to call for the firing of somebody for being slightly racist, or like for having to say something bad.
Or even just saying something that seems like it might be racist. Like, like going into the past and digging through them and trying to find something somewhere.
Because totally everyone has said stupid stuff. Like right now, like everyone who's an adult now
we all had
MySpace.
Like a MySpace. Yeah, MySpace.
Exactly.
We all had a MySpace, and we all probably like were 15 and we're just dumb morons. We didn't know what we were doing. Literally. I don't know. I don't even want to know, you know? I don't even want to know the things I said.
You know what my first post on Facebook was? I'm going to Taco Bell. Like,
And then all of a sudden, no, here's the thing: Taco Bell becomes a racist company in 5 years, and then it's like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy 14 supports racism. You know, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that because in this situation, it is fuzzy. But I don't like. What do you do? Are we allowed to just go back 10 years? Because what happens when we got Alexa now? It's game over for everyone. Nobody has a job on Monday.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing now. It's like, I guess the question is like, when is it still relevant? Well, there's multiple questions, but that's one of them.
I still just, I'm like, where
like
is...
statute of limitation, or
where is the line?
Yeah, that's right. Statute of limitations.
Exactly, statute of limitations. Where is the line?
Well, it's also like, what good does it do? Because, first of all, James Gunn is an awesome director, obviously. Guardians of the Galaxy both did really well. I love the first one. It was like a really refreshing movie in the genre, even though the genre was already really funny. Like, he's doing a great job at his job, which is making movies for kids that kids love that aren't creepy or pedophilia related at all.
Right.
You know, like, they're excellent movies. He did his job. He's killing it. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that he doesn't need to be fired. I'm just saying, like, he's getting fired for something that's not job related, but it also affects the company. So I don't know, it's weird. I just imagine like if you like worked for like a construction company.
I'm saying because it's not job related, that's why it should be taken in a different way. Because, it's different for a comedian. It's different for a comedian to try to make jokes and then they fail, versus like if a pastor was tweeting these out, wouldn't it have a different impact?
Oh yeah, that would be way different. It's like
your job is you're losing your job because you are hurting the reputation of the company that hired you, because you're saying things that someone in your position shouldn't be saying.
Right. But I think
that's why it's different.
But James Gunn, that's a good point. But with James Gunn, I think he, like, at the time he was trying to be entertaining. Everyone on Twitter is, even you, even me. Like, I don't have Twitter, but like on Facebook and stuff, everyone's trying to like be funny and be entertaining, be shocking. So, and he is a director. He's an entertainer in an indirect way. So it makes sense for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm like this really weird, edgy, like, director guy. I need to put some edgy, weird tweets on my Twitter. Like, he wasn't necessarily, at the time, he was doing his job. As gross as that sounds.
I don't think that was his job. Like, as a director, your job is not to make jokes about whatever. Like, as a comedian, your job is to make jokes. I feel like he's just trying to build his persona. Like Quentin Tarantino is known for being super weird and like really specific and stuff. So I'm sure, like, in his personal life, and like, I don't follow social media, but like I've heard stories of actors like encountering him. He's always doing something really weird, like looking stressed and crazy. It's just like he's just trying to create a persona of himself. Right. Not
excusing his particular tweets, but I'm saying like that's what I think he was trying to do at the time. I don't think he said he didn't mean them. He doesn't actually do those things. Mm-hmm. So it seems like he was just trying to be like, oh, haha, I'm so shocking. Like, watch my movies. They're just like me.
Right. I don't know. I don't. Let me think about what I'm trying to say.
Well, I guess, Luke, like, where
my opinion could change on this. I'm not in stone about it, but I don't think this is the exact same situation as a lot of the other ones.
It definitely isn't.
I guess, do you think he's a good director for the Guardians of the Galaxy? And do you think that he should be judged based on his current character and his current competence at the job on whether or not he gets fired? Luke?
I do think he's a good director. And I do think that you should take into account that side of it. But it does come back to like what I said as the example of the teacher. If she's a good teacher, but she says something and all the parents say, I'm not taking my kids to this school anymore because I'm concerned about that teacher. And so with him, it's like, well, I'm not going to take my kids and spend money to support a guy that is saying things that I think are, to use his own words, abhorrent. Mm-hmm. Right? I just think it's like the company, like, I'm not saying, I usually don't agree with mob mentality. I really don't. And I don't think that this is mob mentality. I think it's peaceful boycott, which I think is totally fine. You know, it's I'm not going to support this stuff.
But we're still talking about his job, though. So peaceful boycott is him losing his job? Or...
Well, so Disney's firing him because they're worried about, like, a boycott.
Right, but...
I don't know. I feel like I'm saying stuff I don't normally say, so it is weird for me, but I'm just trying to... I'm kind of thinking out loud a little bit.
I guess let's take the company out of it. Let's say he was like a lawyer or something, and he was involved with this whole situation with making a comment or something like that. He's a lawyer, and people know him and follow him online and listen to his opinion. He's a bunch of followers on Twitter or something. I don't know.
I think if he was a lawyer, it wouldn't really matter that much.
It's just because that he's making movies.
Well, he's also the leader of the movie. It's like the CEO, like you're the face of the movie. So part of your job is to represent the movie well.
It's like the CEO of a charity organization like tweets and like makes fun of poor people. And it's like, well, this kind of goes against what we're about. So
yeah, it was like I said, if it was a grip, or maybe even if it was one of the even actors, I guess, are still fall into the category as the director, where it's like you are part of the publicity of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just like so for example, my movie Thread, one of the reasons a lot of people watched it because they knew it was my movie and they know me and they want to see my movie. And if people didn't like me, they'd be like, well, I don't want to watch that movie just because I don't like Luke. So part of the studio's investment is who's directing.
Right.
So if people hate the director, then he's a bad investment.
I think in this case, I think Disney made the right decision. Whether or not like it was the only or best like way to handle things, I can totally see it. It'd be way harder to like convince everybody that he's not a pedophile now than to just fire him, and he can still do that on his own and like redeem himself.
Well,
maybe come back for Guardians 4.
Can I bring something into this, and maybe to kind of like, I don't know, maybe
anything. I know
I'm more nuanced to my view.
I'm very like firm, but I haven't heard something that has changed my mind on it yet.
Oh, okay. So what I would say is, so what happened today was a New York Times, have you guys heard about this? A New York Times editorial board member who was just added has more tweets in her history that are pretty racist towards white people. She's an Asian person. Mm-hmm. And she's talking about things like white genocide and horrible things towards white people. Old conservative men are the worst, things like that. Old men in general.
I do hate old men, so I agree with her. I talked about this on the podcast before.
And she's like, I hate old men. And Michael's like, okay, I'm with you so far. I got you. We're good.
She's not that bad. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So basically, the New York Times, after this whole thing came out, they said in a statement, we're not going to fire her, basically. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't really a lot of, how do I put it?
So she said she was being kind of politically correct racist.
Yeah, basically politically correct racist. But she's going to be part of the editorial board.
Okay.
For articles in the New York Times. So I guess the problem with what New York Times said was they didn't just flat out apologize like it's wrong for her to do this. We acknowledge that. It was in the past. We're going to keep her on because we like what she does. They said we're going to keep her on because we like what she does. We're not that offended by it, I guess, kind of. And her former employer, The Verge, kind of said something similar. It's like you're taking the tweets out of context, rather than just straight up saying, "Hey, this was in bad taste. She shouldn't have done this." She was basically she was replying to racist trolls online and trying to be sarcastic towards them, like alt-right people, I guess. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to be, well, I guess it wasn't alt-right people, just straight up racist, because this was back in 2014 before the alt-right was a thing. But it was basically people who were racist towards her. She was trying to be sarcastic towards them.
Right.
Let me say one little thing real quick in relation to all this that I want to make sure I clear up a little bit. This is challenging me. Like, I literally was thinking about this for a while earlier today, trying to figure out what my stance is on it. And I think I might be being more firm than I should be. But I think it's because I know so many people are taking the other stance that I'm trying to like present a good argument for the stance that I'm leaning towards. But I do find myself saying a lot of things that I usually disagree with. So I'm like, okay, hold up. How do I make this consistent? And I'm not sure. So now I'm having second thoughts about some of it. But I still stand by it. I still stand by it. But I'm also like, but how is this consistent? And my big thing was the company.
That's the problem.
But I'm also seeing some holes in it too.
You just have to think about, and this is my whole thing. You have to think about the trend and the precedent that you're setting when you do these things. When you fire people, apologizing to mobs.
I'm trying to figure out, like, when is it a mob and when is it when is it justified? Like, what makes it a mob and what makes it a justified?
Well, that's what we're getting to. That's the deeper rooted issue here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mobs.
That's the ultimate issue.
Mobs are not necessarily always bad either. Really, a mob is just a crowd of excited people.
Right.
Okay, so if a pastor or a church treasurer was tweeting out about stealing money from the church, that's a joke. Should he be allowed to make those jokes and keep his job?
That would depend a lot on the context, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so like, well, I'm just saying, like, it's a joke, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then everyone in the church might be like, okay, well, now I'm kind of on edge. This makes me a little uneasy. Now,
right.
If the church was like, yo, churches have a hard enough time keeping their reputation up as it is without you making jokes that make people like drop out of our church. You see what I mean? So then that would be a situation where I'd be like, well, he made a joke, but I think he should maybe be fired because he's hurting the company.
In that case, he's also like literally making a joke about not taking his, like, it sounds like he's not taking his job seriously, or he really is stealing stuff.
But is that mob mentality? Because then it's like you're bending over to what your market is.
Well, you'd have to literally know, like, if a mob of people brought it up. Like, mob mentality doesn't necessarily mean like the most obvious thing. Like, I, as an individual, I hear that and I can judge it on my own, and I already feel like they should be fired or dealt with in some way. Also, the first step isn't always firing. Like, when I was in like an administration class, and one thing they always said was like, someone being fired should never be a surprise. You know, like, if you know someone's like doing poor at their work or like being inappropriate, you talk to them once, like, hey, like, you gotta stop this, and then from then, if they do it again, you go back and either discipline them or fire them or whatever. But like, it has to be like a thing where it's not like, okay, you're fired now. It should always be let them know what's going on, and then give them a chance to like better themselves if it's able to be. Like, if they're stealing from the company, you're out. That's against the rules. But
I actually just thought of another example.
A lot of gray area.
So Jordan Peterson. Okay, people keep trying to like protest to get him fired from stuff. And it's like, why do you want to get him fired? And it's like, because he's saying the things that he's thinking and I don't like them. And it's like, his job is to think.
Right.
So you're trying to get him fired for doing his job.
See, it doesn't make sense.
So that's where it's a mob, because it's like, well, we don't like what he's saying. Same with comedians. It's like, so you want to get the comedian fired for telling jokes that people are laughing at. See what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest differences in it for me. So it's like, if I want to get someone fired because they are doing something that is affecting their job. So like his tweets right now are affecting so the company is paying him to make the movie more successful, and his tweets are going to make the movie less successful. So he's not doing his job well. Now, it's irrelevant why. It's like him being on the project is hurting the project. Now, with all the outrage, maybe him getting kicked off the project will be worse for the project, but that's another discussion. Does that kind of, I think that's a big part of this that I'm a big reason that I'm taking the stance I'm taking, or leaning towards.
I think that's basically the question that we're trying to figure out is like, when does it warrant that? And
when is it right?
It's totally
when
case
is it wrong?
by case. I think that's the difference. Like, like, it just seems like society, they jump to a conclusion. They want you to treat every situation the same when there's so much nuance in everything.
Everything.
Like
literally everything.
Even to the same kind of offense, like 2 robberies are both totally different. they could have robbed the same place, but doesn't mean they did it the same way, or they have the same history, or like the same people were working. Like everything is different every single time. Like you can't just look at two situations that are similar and handle them both the same. And I feel like people, they try to catch you like, oh, like you weren't mad when they did this, but you're mad when they did this. That's inconsistent. It's like, no, that was different.
Right. But you do have to pinpoint why it's different in a lot of ways.
Do. And like I think that even these three things we talked about before are all really different. Like Roseanne, Papa John, and James Gunn. They're all super different contexts. Different words were said, different time frames. Like it's all different, and you can't like have a huge like one and done epic rule of like whenever this happens, this has to happen.
Nick, I've said most of the things that I wanted to say. Michael, I know you've said quite a bit as well. Was there anything else that you wanted to try and touch on or talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think, I mean, it's we kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like you kind of really don't know what the right answer is in a lot of these situations.
Man, I wanted to solve it today.
And I don't, and like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think that's the point. The point is that people need to think, and people need to be considerate, and people need to not gather in groups to, I guess, dish out harm towards people that they don't even know. Like, the power of social media is a scary thing, in my opinion. So,
the snowball effects happen so quickly.
I just think if you're tweeting on social media for something to happen, and you're threatening something on the internet, and you really don't know the person involved, and you're really not even a part of the situation, I think that in some way is a mob. So take that what you will, but there might be some nuance in that as well. So
I feel like it's the tread lightly type thing where it's like, okay, anytime something like this comes up, the problem with having the internet is someone can write an article, make a tweet, post it, make a picture and post it within minutes. And so opinions get ramped up so quickly, and then countering opinions can get ramped up so quickly. So it's like within minutes of something happening, you have two sides that are attacking each other at full force very quickly. It's not like, well, someone produced and made a movie and then some people didn't like it, so then they took the next year to produce and make a counter movie. It's like within minutes, it's like boom, 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 boom. Both sides are now at war immediately, and anybody can contribute because of Twitter. And that's where it gets so reckless. Is these sides, they just ramp up. I don't know how else to say it other than they just spike immediately.
I think
so don't let yourself spike. Take your time, figure out what's going on, and make an informed decision.
And I think to speak to that, just like it's the polarization, like I've spoken before about. It's just like people are so divided right now, and so I think ultimately what I want from this whole situation is for people to kind of like come together and talk about their differences and like why they believe what they believe. Where's the line in this, especially when we head into the future more, I guess, with social media, because this, I mean, like I said, an event just happened today. Like this is going to kind of be our future now, is just digging up old stuff that people posted online. And it's not going to help the already dire situation with our polarization in society. So that's I think true. If we all came together under one, like kind of like lame, but like rules, like a 10 commandments for like these rules for like social media and stuff like that.
Written on stone.
Just like written on a floppy disk, right? So that would be the stone, I guess. So I don't know. There's something that we need to be drawn to together as a society, like, and that's why I'm so anti like more division. Like I want something towards more of a coming together, and that's where my focus personally has been. And like when and I get mad online when people are continue to be divisive and not be honest, or whether it's intellectually or like when they attack someone's character and they lie about it, when they gaslight. I don't like that. And so I think it's right and just and true and virtuous to like kind of call that stuff out. And I feel like if more people started doing that, we wouldn't see such stupid stories coming out in the news all the time.
It's true.
So
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
I hope that people like who are involved in this situation or who have like taken an opinion on the situation very haphazardly or just very quickly, like actually think about it. But anyway.
Yeah, and we we have our Twitter. We all have Twitters. You know, we would love to hear opinions on this because the interaction would be fun. I'd like to hear. I feel like I'd be thrilled to hear someone say like, "I really disagree. Here's why." Mm-hmm. You know, so feel free to tell us your opinions. But I think we should wrap up. Unless Michael, you have one more thing you want to say or something. I know I agree. Nick talked a bit.
With Nick, bottom line, to stop being so dichotomous. Everything's different. It's okay.
Oh man, don't be a hippo dichotomous.
That was so lame. Oh my gosh.
You could call it a hypo dichotomous. Oh man, what a great way to end such a serious podcast episode. So, plugs, Michael.
Follow me on the Instagram, Michael Demas, MyKolDimas, and I'm posting things on there that you can look at, and then there'll be links to things you can listen to.
Nick.
Let's see. I love drumming. All one word, no G at the end. Follow me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and stay away from my Twitter.
I love it. It's always like, we're not going to get any followers on our podcast, and I'm not going to get any followers, and Michael's not going to get any followers. All of the followers are going to go follow your Twitter page,
and then they'll unfollow me after they see the crap that I retweet and the things that I say.
They'll do it for the lulz. So you can follow me on YouTube, Luke Roxwold Vlogs. You can follow my Instagram at Luke Roxwold. That's ROCKSWOLD. I've been posting a lot of pictures lately, and a lot of people have really liked that and been saying nice things. So feel free to follow me on that. You can tweet at me at Luke Roxwold. Once again, ROCKSWOLD. You can also tweet this podcast, WAITSB podcast on Twitter. Someone was about to say something.
Well, I was going to say, should you do outro music on such a serious episode? It's kind of just like, kills the tone.
No, we won't do it. We won't do it that funny because we're wrapping it. No, it's good. Nick.
I'm just killing the mood.
I'm in charge. I make decisions. The vibe, man. Now it's funny, so now it's good. It'll be good for the music.
You think this is funny, Luke? You think this is funny?
Okay, now you really did kill the mood. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
You know what time it is.
3, 2, 1. Outro music.